Hey, guys. Okay, we are back. I do apologize for that. For whatever reason, technology, I froze. I had to log out, come back in, but we're back. So welcome. We're back. We're back. So we're just gonna just start over, right? So welcome to Maximize Your Monday. We had to start over due to some technical difficulties, but we are back. We are talking about 3 ways to find your ideal client. I am your vision coach, Latoya Early, here to bring clarity, confidence, and expansion to the vision that God has given to you through coaching. I am also the founder of Chase Gray University. We are a niche certification program for Christian coaches where we help you align your life's purpose with your coaching message so that you can generate profit without compromising your kingdom assignment. And so we are talking about your ideal client, right? And what does that look like? We've talked about different ways that you may have been taught to find your ideal client, to discover your ideal client. I know many of you have probably heard of one of the strategies that we use where you need to do an avatar or do some market research, right? These are all strategies that we've learned on how to find your client. Go out and do market research, ask questions. Sometimes we're even taught that your ideal client is anyone that will buy, right? So you want to go to the people who are buying your services or buying your products and go ahead and look at them and model them as your ideal client. There's a class that I normally teach annually at the Shift conference called Shift Your Mindy. And Mindy was my specific ideal client. She was the person that I saw working with me most often when it came to my coaching business. So not only did I have time to really understand Mindy, but Mindy evolved. Right? Mindy evolved. Mindy it evolved from just a standard ideal client to me really understanding what an ideal client was. So I went from the avatar and the market research, and then I evolved into knowing Mindy on a much deeper level, right? On a much deeper level. And so let's talk about that. There are 5 different marketing layers, right? There are 5 different marketing layers, and I want to talk about them because they're really important when it comes to you knowing and getting clarity of your ideal client, right? The 5 different marketing areas go like this. The first marketing area is the target unknown. So the target unknown is for that new coach, that startup coach, that coach who's just getting started, that coach who is excited about their messaging, and you're just out there. You are talking to anybody who wants to listen, right? This it reminds me of when you first get saved. You know how when you first get saved, you're so excited about Christ and you just want to tell everybody? That's that target unknown, right? When you first become a coach, you're like, I can coach anybody. I can solve any problem. It's like you found your cape and you're ready, right? That's the target unknown. Then we have the target market. The target market are the people who you're exposed to. So I'll use social media as an example. Like your Facebook page will be your target market, because those are the people who are currently exposed to your message, right? They're exposed to your content. And so when we talk about your target market, we're talking about people who are aware of you, but they may not have yet decided that you are what they need to solve their problem. Right. So they know that, they're aware of you, they're aware of your messaging. They may scroll past, they may not engage, but they're aware. Now you have what we will call your target audience, right? Your target audience. Your target audience is the person who is engaging with you, right? So the target market is the person who is exposed to you. Your target audience is the person who's engaged with you. This is the person who's engaged in your content. They're responding, they're sharing, they're liking, they're answering your questions. They are, engaging in your content. This is who we will consider to be our target audience, right? And this is important for you to know, because in every layer of the marketing, you'll see how to fine tune your language and your content so that you draw out the ideal client. Right. So we've talked about the target unknown. We've talked about the target market. You have your target audience. Then you have the ideal client. The ideal client is the person who is connected to your content and they're ready, right? They're ready to engage with you. They're ready to buy. They're ready to say yes. They are ready to take your next offer. They are connected to your experiences, they're connected to your story, and they're ready, right? That's who we will consider to be our ideal client, and that's who we're going to talk about. Then you have your enrolled client. Right, the enrolled client is the client that you've been able to make your offer to, and they have enrolled into your program. So those are 5 different marketing layers, and our enrolled clients are still on the marketing in our marketing, because number one, we want to find out what attracted them, and then number two, we want to find out, this is where you're able to learn if your program is strong enough to re-enroll people, right? Where they enjoy your coaching, that they want to sign their contract again, or they want to re-enroll. So even the enrolled client is still a part of those marketing layers, right? So we're talking about 3 ways to find your ideal client. I wanted to share with you the 5 different marketing layers, because you need to be aware of where you are in each layer, right? If you're still at that target unknown, it's because you're still trying to figure out who your client is. If you're in that target market, it means that you have a message, but you still haven't yet identified who that message is for. If you're talking to your target audience, then we're in a good space, because this is where you're able to really pull out the ideal client, because you're watching who's engaging, you're watching who is sharing, you're watching who is answering questions, you're watching who's following you. And so this level of engagement is what's going to help you better create content. Hey, Coach Latrice, thank you so much for rejoining us. I do apologize. My screen froze earlier and we had to start over. But we're talking about, those 3 ways to find your ideal client. And I wanted to share with you those different marketing layers so that you're aware, right? When you're aware, and I want you to let me know in the comments, let me know, one, if you're speaking to the target unknown, you're like, Latoya, I'm new to this. I don't know who my specific ideal client is, but I'm just excited about my messaging, right? So that's the target unknown. Let me know. Put a 1 in the comments if that's you. Put a 2 in the comments if you're talking to your target market, where I'm exposing my message, I'm sharing my message. I'm not 100% clear on who my message is for, but I'm gathering an audience, right? Put a 3 if you're speaking to your target audience. You're saying, I'm getting engagement, Latoya. People are sharing my posts, people are engaging with me on my posts, but yet I'm still learning my ideal client. Put 4 if you know exactly who your specific ideal client is. And then put a 5 if you've had clients enroll. Now, again, if we have enrolled clients, these are the clients that we want to use to better determine who our ideal client is, right? So let's talk about those 3 ways to find your ideal client. So number 1, the very first strategy, and again, the strategy that we share here at Chase Great, we strive to build strategies that are in alignment with the Word of God, right? And so the very first strategy that we have is, when you talk about finding your ideal client, my recommendation is to find you first. In this scripture, this comes out of the passage where we talk about the speck in your brother's eye, but there's a log in yours. Right. Good morning, Coach JC. So glad you are at the specific ideal client. So you know who your specific ideal client is, right? Because that's 4, right? So we said 1 is the target unknown. You're super excited and you're new to coaching and you don't know who you're talking to. You just know you talking. I like to use I like to compare that to the new person who's saved, right? You know how when you first get saved, you be want to share the message, you be want to share the gospel with anybody who want to listen, right? So that's level 1. Level 2 is the target market, where you're sharing your message, people are watching your message, you know that you're becoming visible, it just is not yet connecting to the ideal client. Level 3 is a target audience, where I'm sharing my message, I'm getting the engagement, I'm getting the shares, but I'm still learning who my specific ideal client is. Then number 4, which is Coach JC, and Coach JC, please make sure you tell me if I'm pronouncing your name right. Then level 4 is, I know who my ideal client is. I am now in a space where I am learning how to develop better content so that I can speak to them. And then level 5 is enroll clients. I'm enrolling clients, and then now I need to take the time to learn my enrolled clients so that I can create better content or more content that's going to speak that's going to speak directly to my specific ideal client, right? Okay, cool. Oh, cool. I'm saying it right. Okay. So Coach Latrice said, I believe I am a 3 and a 5. I've enrolled clients, but not consistently. So I'm still gathering my clients. Okay. So you enrolling clients and not enrolling them consistently is not the same. Right. So it's not that you may not know who your client is. It may just be increasing the visibility. So if you're saying you're at a 3 where you're getting the audience and the engagement, but yet you are enrolling them, now we need to figure out the disconnect. Right. So if you're getting the engagement, but we aren't enrolling them, we need to find out why. What's the hesitation? What's keeping them from becoming an enrolled client? Because if you've had enrolled clients before, then we need to go back to that type of language. We need to go research that type of content that we've produced to get the clients that we already have. Right. So it's not that the inconsistency may not be the client. It may be or you not knowing who your client is. It may be what we're offering them. It may be the language in which you're using. It may be the behaviors that you're calling out. So that let's look at those things and say, okay, let me fine tune this. Okay. Coach JC said I am saying her name correctly. That works. Hey, Coach Brittany, welcome to the room. Welcome to the space. Coach Brittany said, I am just getting on. I think I'm a 3. I get the engagement, but no clients yet. Okay, so we need to work on the language, right? So if we're getting the engagement, number 1, we need to find out, am I asking, am I putting out a call to action every time, right? So that's the first thing. Number 2, what does the engagement look like? Because sometimes we may be getting likes and people may be commenting, but are you going back under those comments and you're creating a relationship? You're creating conversation, right? When you talk about what type of content we're posting, if we're talking about in level 3, we're talking to our target audience. If we're getting the engagement, then we need to figure out, okay, what am I not putting in my language that's converting them into a enrolled client, right? When we know, when we're posting, are we able to shift the conversation into messenger, or are we able to convert that engagement into a scheduled call, right? And if you're saying no, then we need to look at the language. We need to find out, am I giving a precise call to action? Am I giving them precise steps on what to do next to work with me? Am I reaching out to these people? Right. And then of course we talked about level 4 being ideal client, and level 5 being enrolled client. So we're talking about the 3 ways to find your client, right? And so the very first way, the very first strategy that I share, and again, we talk about kingdom strategies, is to find yourself. Is to find yourself. What do I mean by that? And this coming out of the passage, I need to give y'all a direct scripture. I'll look it up and put it in the comments. But about the speckle in your brother's eye, but you have a log in your own, right? When we think about the ideal client, we're so used to wanting to solve the problem for other people before we solve the problem for ourselves. And I think that's where the biggest hiccup in human nature, period, is that we're so willing to do for others what we're not willing to do for ourselves. Well, the same due diligence is going to be required for us to serve our clients with excellence, is the same due diligence we have to work within ourselves. Well, how did I know, or how did I get clarity of my ideal client? I had to first look at the man in the mirror, right? I had to look at me first in order to better see and understand my client. Why? Because the question that I always ask is, who did Latoya need when Latoya needed Latoya? What did Latoya need when Latoya needed Latoya? When Latoya was struggling with owning her assignment in coaching, that was probably my biggest hiccup, is owning my assignment in coaching. Why? Because when coaching was introduced to me, or when I first started learning about coaching, it was so industry based, it was so systematic, and this is how it should look, and this is how it should be built, that there was no introduction of kingdom assignment in that, right? And so when I first started building the business, because all of my instruction was such secular instruction, I didn't know how to incorporate Christ in my coaching. So not only did I not know how to incorporate Christ, but I was intimidated because I received backlash, right? I received people telling me that, I shouldn't use Christ in my marketing. I've heard people tell me that they believe that I only use Christian as a marketing scam, like just all of these things that was going against what God was showing as a coach, right? So I struggle. Y'all let me know if I'm freezing again. I don't know what's going on today. I normally do good with signals. I normally do good. So we're talking about the number one step is finding yourself, right? If you're going to find your ideal client, you need to first find yourself. Before I was cleared, I'll use Coach Brittany for as an example. What I share with the coaches all the time is, when you are clear of who you are and what you've experienced, when you sit before your specific ideal client, you can see pieces of you in them. This is why it's important for us to know and heal ourselves first before we start to market to clients. Because again, what it does is, when you are aware of your triggers, when you are aware of your experiences, when you're aware of the things that cause you to become stuck and stagnant, now you can see certain behaviors that you once displayed. You can see that in your client. We talk about pain points all the time. And one of the strategies that I teach is, we're not really going after the pain point. We're more so trying to identify the behavior. Why? Because a person can sit in pain for so long and not even recognize that they're sitting in pain. And so while you're calling out pain points, you can most definitely be talking to your client, but because they've been in pain for so long, they don't even know that they're still going through it. They don't know that it's painful. So what do we encourage you to do? To speak to the behavior. Call out the behavior, right? Why? Because the behavior is connected to the root. I guarantee you. The behavior is connected to the root of your client's problem. So if your client is suffering from rejection, abandonment, trauma, some sort of issue, I'll use Coach Brittany for an example. Well, Coach Brittany is a confidence coach. She's a confidence coach who helps other service-based entrepreneurs build their business and helping them to strengthen their confidence so that they can market their businesses correctly. Well, that's rooted in rejection, right? It's rooted in rejection. So now we need to find behaviors that reflect rejection. What is your client currently doing in their life that um their behavior is the result of them feeling rejected in some way? What are they doing in their business? Okay, so now Coach Brittany, she's going to sit down and she's going to look at herself first. What was she doing in her business? Why? Because what we've been called from is what we're being called to. So the problem that you're called to solve in your coaching business is not about you going out to find a problem. It's a problem that you once experienced. So now that we've identified the problem in self first, now I'm going to look at my behaviors. Well, how was I acting when I was struggling with lack of clarity? Right? How was I acting when I was struggling with lack of confidence? How was I acting? What was my behavior? It was painful for me, but because I had been in this seat of pain for so long, I had kind of become accustomed to it. So now my behavior, now let's look at the behavior chart of what I was doing. So when I was struggling with accepting my kingdom assignment in coaching, I was Googling a lot. I was trying to receive validation from people a lot, like looking for people to validate my gift in coaching. I was spending a lot of time downloading a lot of YouTube downloadables and freebies because I was trying to piece together a strategy that made sense to me. These are all some of my behaviors, right? But I wasn't I had set in the pain of lack of clarity for so long. I figured this was a part of my process. So I never really acknowledged it as pain anymore. But now when I look at my behaviors, now it makes sense. Right. And so now we're looking at the behaviors of your client. When we talk about Chase Great's client, we're talking about the client who spends a lot of time researching and consuming information. You spend a lot of time researching and consuming information, right? And so because you spend a lot of times researching and consuming, you don't know how to implement because you don't have the godly support that you need to implement in a kingdom way, using kingdom strategy. Now, can I hire any coach to help me? Yes, but I know that my assignment is specific. Right? These are behaviors. And so when we talk about finding the ideal client, the very first thing you want to do is find yourself first. You are 100% a reflection of who you're called to serve. So now the question is, are you doing your self examinations? Are you doing your self examining? Are you sitting down and saying, okay, what areas am I not healed in? What areas am I struggling in? This is not only going to help you with your client, but this is going to help you with yourself. We have to stop trying to heal people. And I'm saying that very loosely because we don't heal anybody. It's through the Holy Spirit that people are healed. But we have to stop trying to be the solution to problems and we're not solving it first for ourselves. Right? Coach Brittany said possibly they are engaging with me because they know and are like me, but they don't see the results driven value I offer. Right. So now, and that's what I mean by the language, right? So that's why it's very important to go back and say, okay, now they're engaging with me. They're starting to get to know me. They're starting to like me. But let me show them as a confidence coach who empowers service-based business owners to be the best version of themselves so that they can confidently show up in their business and attract their ideal client. Okay, those are the results, right? So when you're identifying the problem, or I'm sorry, the behaviors, I want you to tell me some of the behaviors that these business women, what are some of the behaviors? What are some of their behaviors that is a reflection of rejection, right? Because, and I know Brittany's core, I know the root problem that she's called to solve is rejection, right? I know that Brittany works, she's an amazing student of Chase Gray University. And so now we have to do what? We have to now start to display the behaviors of rejection for a service-based businesswoman. What does that mean? What is she doing? Right? Is she not asking for the sale? Well, why isn't she asking for the sale? She's afraid of rejection. So her not asking for the sale is doing what to her business? And while working with Brittany, I'm going to help her gain the confidence to ask for the sale. And then when you work with her, Brittany, and she gets the confidence to ask for the sale, what are the results? She's going to increase her clientele, right? And so this is what we mean. So what is a behavior? Maybe one of the behaviors that she has is she doesn't show up live, right? So she'll send everything because she's a businesswoman. She got all her systems and her processes in place, but she refused to show up as herself. It's like she shows up through the business, doing the business systems and doing the work, but does she show up to be the voice, to be the face of the business? Well, why? Does she struggle with how she looks? Right? Because that's something that we get a lot where the women don't feel confident enough to show up. Listen, I've been on a new hair journey, y'all. Your girl has gone natural. I have been a silk press girl my entire life, right? I think I stopped doing my own hair in middle school. I started going to get my hair done professionally at a salon in high school, and it's been straight hair from that point on, right? So I just locked my hair December 18th. And so I'm going through this change. I'm going through this natural hair. This isn't my normal look. And so a lot of times women will get nervous or intimidated to show up if they don't feel their best self. So how can she help the businesswoman rid the rejection so that she can show up and be the face for her company, right? We're talking about behaviors, right? And so this is important because we're talking about 3 ways to find your ideal client. I gotta hurry up because I got a whole 1 o'clock. We got talking about 3 ways. 3 ways to find your ideal client. Number one is you have to find yourself. Hey, Coach Athena, thank you for joining me today. Right? And so I want to use Coach Athena for example when we're talking about the ideal client. This is so good. So we've been working diligently on Coach Athena's language. What is very important as we are kingdom coaches, is very important for us to make sure that when we are designing our message that people can see the practical implementation of your strategy. We're called to a spiritual problem, right? As kingdom coaches, we're called to a spiritual problem. So if you don't know that, then now you know, right? When we talk about kingdom coaches, we're talking about coaches who understand that I'm called to a spiritual problem. Well, as a kingdom coach, we're called to a spiritual problem, but in our messaging, we have to be able to show practical implementation so that the person who isn't spiritually literate will understand how you can serve them, right? And so going back to Coach Brittany, remember the root, she's called to the spiritual problem of rejection. Well, for some of her clients, although they may be believers, they may not really understand it in its totality what that looks like. So we have to bring practical language to solving this spiritual problem, right? So Coach Athena, she is a identity coach. Excuse me, y'all. She's an identity coach, right? And she's an identity coach helping business owners implement their kingdom assignment in their business, right? And so when we talk about the ideal client right now, I'm helping Coach Athena see that number one, her client is who she once was. Right, her current client is who she once was. The Coach Athena that was starting businesses, trying to figure out, how do I still be this prophet? How do I still operate in evangelism? How do I still operate in apostleship? How do I still operate in my kingdom spiritual gifts and produce profit in my business? Right. And so that's where Coach Athena is now. As a matter of fact, she just shared she helped kingdom minded entrepreneurs overcome doubt and discover their talent strengths so that they can produce a kingdom driven business. So it's understanding your talent, is understanding your strengths, and then knowing how to implement your kingdom assignment into your business. So whether or not you are in apparel, whether or not you're in technology and software, whether or not you're a consultant, whether or not you are a coach, how do I take my, and for the lack of words, I know that this is a very churchy term, but in the fivefold ministry, the apostles, the preachers, the teachers, the evangelists, the prophets, how do I take that gift and implement it in my business so that I could produce profit and still run a kingdom business? So while Coach Athena is developing content, she's speaking to the client who starts businesses and they struggle with implementing their kingdom assignment. So now the question is, okay, where was Coach Athena when she needed her? When she needed the strategies that she's offering, what was her behaviors? Right? What were her behaviors? What what were her behaviors, right? What was she fighting against? This is how, and so now once she identified these things and she now starts to create content to speak to her ideal client, she doesn't feel lost. She doesn't feel confused. She doesn't feel like, no, when you're designing your content, I want you to speak to that Athena. Don't worry about the Sarah or the Jessica or the Kathy that's been watching you. I want you to think about, when I design content, I say, "Dear Latoya," right? Because I know that my ideal client is a piece of me. So I need to speak to my ideal client using language that I needed when I needed me. Let me know in the comments if this is making sense to you guys. Okay, I gotta hurry up. I got 3 minutes. So Coach Brittany said, one behavior, putting off a project that you should have finished weeks, months, or even a year ago because they want everything to be perfect. So one of her behaviors is procrastination, right? And so we know that procrastination, the root to procrastination is fear. So we need to find out what this client is afraid of. They're afraid of things not being perfect. So now that's the behavior, right? You're afraid, the behavior is putting off the project, but when we're creating the language, we're talking about the fear of not being perfect, right? Does that make sense? We're talking about the fear of not being perfect. And so when we're creating content, Brittany, we want to talk directly to the person who is afraid of putting out a product and it's not perfect. How does that make you feel? What is this person going through? Right. And again, this is different language that we can use, which brings me, I'm gonna go a little bit out of sequence with my 1 2 3. Number 3 was relatable language, right? When we talk about finding our ideal client, we're talking about relatable language that they can connect to, language that's relatable to them, language that they understand, language that connects with them. That's the most important part to finding your ideal client, is using language that they use. Something you can't tell me, you wouldn't be able to get my attention by using language like, do you believe, excuse me, do you believe your business will fail? That's not language that I use because I don't believe my business will fail, right? But if you were to say something like, um, if you're not saying something like, do you believe your language will fail? Because that's not language that I'll connect to because I don't believe that. You could say something like, do you write daily confirmations or affirmations about your business and you're waiting for them to become your reality? Okay, right? That's a behavior. That's something that I do. I sit and I write out my confessions, right? And so because of that, now the language is switched, right? Now it's more clear of who I'm talking. Now it's more clear that they're talking to me because they're using language that I understand. Okay, y'all, I'm gonna have to pause for a second. I'll come back because I'm not done. So we're gonna pause and I'll come back. I got a meeting right now that I need to go to with my mentor. But we're gonna pause and come back because we're still talking about 3 ways to find your ideal client, and I want to keep going on reason number 2 and reason number 3. We're talking about relatable language and how important it is for your language to be relatable. Coach Athena said that's so me trying to overcome perfectionism, right? So when you're trying to overcome perfectionism, it stunts your consistency, it stunts your productivity because you're stuck. So now we need to find language that speaks to the person who's trying to overcome their perfectionism, right? Okay, cool. Listen, y'all, I'll be back. Let me jump into my 1 o'clock and I'll be back. Cool.